Retro.
Hey, this is Catherine Tabor, Senator Padme Amidala from Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Jay and Dennis on Podcast Stardust. Stay on the light side.
Hello, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we are kicking off December with a discussion of 2 more episodes of Volume 3 of Visions. But before we do that, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are?
Ooh, December already. We are on Facebook and Instagram conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
All right, the dish is lying, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down. We're now broadcasting to the galaxy. So we've got 2 more episodes of Visions Volume 3 on deck. That includes The Lost Ones and The Smuggler. And we'll probably spend about 10-15 minutes discussing each one of these. Up first is The Lost Ones. This is by Kinema Citrus. And this episode is a sequel to The Village Bride, which was from Volume 1 of Visions a few years ago. Quick summary: on a world forsaken by the Empire, carbonite gas is slowly freezing the planet. F, a Jedi, assists some researchers collecting carbonite gas and accompanies them to the refugee ship. Before they can leave the world, a Star Destroyer arrives and demands that F surrender herself. F does, but is accompanied by Ron, one of the refugees. Aboard the Star Destroyer, F encounters her fallen Jedi Master, while Ron sabotages the ship. F rejects her former master's invitation to join them and hunt down the Jedi, and then they escape back to the refugee ship, or they rendezvous with the refugee ship after that. So what did you think about this one overall, Jay?
Oh, it was so good. And one thing that I didn't do that I wish now I would have is to go back and rewatch The Village Bride before watching this one. Because I'll admit, at first I was a little bit lost, especially if someone hadn't seen The Village Bride. This doesn't really explain what's kind of going on. I mean, it does, but not like some of the other episodes of Visions does. But if you are familiar with The Village Bride, this is, and a fan of it, it's a satisfying continuation to that. It's not just nostalgic in that way, but it really does deepen the arc of F's character, I feel. And because this particular journey is not just heroic, it's deeply personal. And so it's got some quieter moments in it. There's definitely some layering to the storytelling in this. And I have to go back and watch The Village Bride again, because like I said, I feel like I would have been better prepared to jump into this had I done that. But it was still a good story overall, I felt like. What do you think?
Yeah, I liked this one. I thought it was pretty good. I did not watch or rewatch The Village Bride again before watching this. And I remember that I felt like The Village Bride was only kind of average when we covered Volume 1 of Visions. And maybe my memory is faulty on that, and I need to revisit here. But I really like this story. This seems like a real Star Wars adventure. And this, I mean, I try not to judge these from the perspective that they could have taken place in the Star Wars canon as we know it, but this one could have, if they wanted to, they could make it a canonical story. I have some questions about this. I do not remember if Shad Ra, F's Jedi Master, was in The Village Bride, or if we knew about that character prior to this episode, and that character kind of confused me with the way they were talking about him. But at any rate, no, this was good. I like the idea, especially after having read The High Republic, of this planet that's threatened by this erupting carbonite gas and slowly freezing. I mean, it reminded me of the Blight in ways.
Yeah.
And, and the fact that the Republic just was not able to save everyone everywhere at once. And in this case, you took that problem and you compound it by having an uncaring empire that just wasn't showing up to do anything. When the Empire finally gets around to this planet, it's because they want to get a Jedi that's been reported there. as opposed to
Exactly.
helping out the people, which is how like the Empire. I mean, right?
Right. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the technical stuff from here. What did you think about the animation, the drawing styles, the sound, music, and all that for this episode?
The music, I mean, it was like right away, we were talking about the last couple of episodes and some of the music just didn't hit.
Hmm.
This one definitely does for sure. I mean, just right away. And so I think that the animation itself is elegant. It's got some definitely some striking backgrounds. I mean, the spaceship interiors are really good. Desolate landscapes are really good, and again, the soundscape I just think is great. So overall, cinematically, I guess you could say it's got a lot of great strengths to it. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, I think it's been a consistent. I'm sorry. I should say it's been consistent across all these episodes. Envision like the soundscape that I feel like Lucasfilm just must have like turned over their sound effect assets because
Hmm.
they repeatedly get those rights from the lightsabers to the blasters to the engines and things like that. The animation, and I've also noticed this in a number of episodes from Volume 3, it feels like different people are in charge when it comes to doing the ships, and other people are in charge of doing like the animation for the characters.
Yes, yeah, I can see that. Uh-huh.
And because the Star Destroyer shows up, I'm like, that looks like he could have plucked it right off the screen from one
It
of the
was
movies.
very realistic, yeah.
Yeah, and there was nothing wrong with the animation of the characters. They were done in an anime style, and it was fine. It was perfectly fine, but it was and they blended well enough, but they were distinctly different in that regard. And I
Mhm.
felt that way with other episodes of Visions Volume 3 as well. But I mean that Star Destroyer show, I was like, whoa, okay.
Right.
I mean,
Like,
they made they made it look gigantic and it looked very realistic. It looked like more of the model. They filmed a model and put it in there.
mhm.
And there was a great bit on StarWars.com for the episode guide for this, where they're talking about the refugee ship, which never actually gets named. But they talked about how they studied a lot of manufacturing facilities when they were designing that. And then the director came over to the United States and went and visited the USS Intrepid, which is a World War II aircraft carrier. And they
Oh,
used
nice.
that as their inspiration for coming up with that refugee ship because it really is this gigantic industrial hulking looking thing floating around space.
Mhm.
Not as big as a Star Destroyer, but getting there. It's not pretty. It's just
No.
as it's very it's very stark and it's designed for surveying and transporting people, but not much else.
Yeah, it almost looks like a cobbled together RV in a
Hmm.
lot of ways.
Yeah, but I also thought that was funny because apparently the director went from there down to Orlando and visited Galaxy's Edge, ostensibly for research. But they're like the little feature. It's like, did he really go for research or was he just on vacation? So because there was all these selfies in front of him, the Falcon, and meeting with Chewbacca and the likes, and so it was just fun.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. One of the other things I liked was the design of F. Again, I it's been so long since I've seen The Village Bride, but I didn't remember her having an artificial leg. And this prosthetic leg, though, was actually kind of cool the way that it was designed. And then it had like a holographic capability that would hide the fact that it was, in fact, prosthetic, which was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, yeah, I liked that as well, and I like the way that like you said, it just kind of comes up and over top of her leg to almost hide it,
Hmm.
sort of like a cloaking device in a way.
Yeah. One of the other things that stood out to me here was this little plot by Ron, which is one of the researchers that F meets on the planet and actually saves Ron and Theo, his friend, from an earthquake. And they escape. But Ron is adamant that she shouldn't be surrendering herself to the Empire. That's just like giving up. And then when she insists that it has to happen so she can keep them all safe, he says he's going to go with her and he poses like he captured her and is turning her in for a reward. But once he's there, he sneaks off into the engine room and sabotages it with some carbonite gas. That felt like an episode of the Clone Wars when he did that,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
really thought that was pretty cool. I like the. I'm don't know if they were inspired by that or not, but it just felt like a genuine Star Wars type of an action scene.
No, I agree with you on that one, and Ron was a very likable character,
Mhm.
and I was kind of surprised by his name. It was just Ron. I don't know why that surprised me, but it just did. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's this definitely had a lot of elements of that lean into the familiar for us in Star Wars, that's for sure.
So did you catch the Back to the Future reference at the beginning of this episode?
No, I did not.
Okay. It's the very first thing we see. I'm assuming it was Ron, is in a yellow suit with a visor over their face, but it's basically a traditional 1980s radiation suit. And he puts something up against a sample, and then it's got a wire that runs to it, and it's a little square box he's holding his hand. It's essentially the scene from Back to the Future where Marty McFly is visiting his dad, and
Oh
he's trying to
my
convince
gosh.
him to take out his future mom to the dance. And so he dresses up in the radiation suit and then puts the headphones on um, McFly, and basically, it's
Yes.
blasting Van Halen. And he's like, I am Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan.
Oh
And
my goodness. That is
yeah,
so funny.
that's that exact, it's like almost the exact
Yeah.
movements and pose and camera angle and everything
Now
there.
that you say that, yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that.
And I could not believe they didn't call it out in the episode guide at all. I guess they just want to leave it as an Easter egg for everybody there. But it was, I was like, wait a minute. And it's kind of funny because with that, I was expecting a completely different tone for this episode. But once I saw that, but no, then it ended up being something much more similar to The Village Bride.
Yeah. There's some cheeky things in here. I love it.
Hmm. Hmm. What else stood out to you from this episode?
I really like the character of Juna,
Mm,
the basilisk, the Dexter Jetster character.
yeah.
I just feel like that this is a character that I would love to know more about, and
Hmm.
I would love to see more of. And I love the nurturing aspect, her interactions with F, just the whole personality and demeanor from this character. And like I said, I would love to have more. I just really that character really resonated with me.
Hmm. I like that character too. I was a little confused by the multicolored nature of Juno because he had like
Mhm.
a yellow lip or green lip, I can't remember, and like a red neck or different and things like that. I don't know if you ever saw these, but it was a couple of years ago, and maybe they still do them. It may have been a convention thing, but they had these like multicolored retro action figures that were
Oh,
out, and
yeah.
they'd be like Darth Vader with a red arm and a green leg and a blue torso or whatever. And
Mhm.
that's what I kept thinking of when I saw Juna because of all the different random colors they had on that. So also, what is behind F's name? That's just a single letter.
I
Was that
know, I've wondered that myself.
um I don't know if that is a, and I hate to say this because it just sounds ignorant, but is that just a Japanese thing? Is it a, is it short for something? Is it a code name? Is it an alias of some sort? But I don't remember that coming up in The Village Bride. Maybe it did, and I'm just forgetting. But it's completely unaddressed here in
Yeah,
that regard. So,
yeah. I'm wondering if it just is supposed to give her, like, this enigmatic kinda quality, you know what I
mhm,
mean? And that the name doesn't have to really have any weight to it, and
mhm.
that's kind of the whole purpose to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I could be. It's as good an explanation as any I can think of. So, last thing that I want to touch on is that we got this meeting between F and her former master, Shadra, who's now known as Zero. And Zero, when they were Shadra, had died and now was back and is basically trying to tempt F to join them in eliminating the Jedi. And Shadra's perspective is that the Jedi are responsible for the war, and he now hates he hates the Republic, he hates the Jedi, and now he hates F because she won't join them. I mean, in a way, it's kind of like Anakin in that regard. They've
Mhm.
clearly bled their lightsaber, and now they're on the dark side, and they're serving the Empire and all. But what did you make of this character?
Well, this was one of the things that was a little confusing to me because I was thinking, okay, is this just a, kind of a weird mirage kind of vision thing, or is this person actually back? is this kind of a, a figment of the imagination or that type of thing? But obviously, in the end, this person was very, very real. I think their whole character was very ambiguous in a
Mhm.
lot of different ways, but it was also very layered as a character as well. So, yeah, I was put off a little bit by that whole thing, but yet it was also very intriguing to me. And I think that a lot of this is kind of for F anyways. It was a very moment of mirroring, I guess, because she's confronting not just this person, but what she could become if
Yep.
she would, abandon her principles. So it was a lot more symbolic than anything too.
Yeah, I was getting a little bothered by the fact that it just didn't feel like we had a good enough explanation as to what was going on to Shadra, how
Right.
Shadra died, why there was this conflict, why Shadra was mad with the Republic, mad with the Jedi, and everything else. But ultimately, I decided it just didn't matter in this
Mhm.
case because there was this character that we got some flashbacks with from when F was a child and was training with essentially in a Padawan master type of relationship. And then F basically points out that her master has died, but her master taught her to be a Jedi and to serve others, and that is what she's going to honor. And that Shadra, who is now Zero, is no longer that person. And in a way, it kind of mirrors the whole the what I told you is true from a certain point of view. When Obi-Wan says that to Luke,
Mhm.
that when Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, he ceased to be the man that he trained and he knew. So that man had died from a certain point of view. And I think that's basically the stance F took with regards to all this. And she was so dedicated to her duty that she got into a saber fight with Shadra that she knew she couldn't win. And she lost an arm and her legs
Right.
in that fight.
Who does that sound like?
Yeah, the other half of Anakin, which is
Mhm.
again, the one comparison was to Shadra, now it's to F. But unlike Anakin, I mean, this is a sacrifice that F is making, and she plants that carbonite on Shadra, and she says, "I didn't have to, I knew I couldn't." How does she put it? It's like couldn't necessarily beat you with in a saber duel, but that doesn't mean I can't defeat you, and she
Yes.
did by being true to herself, being true to the Force.
Yeah.
So I like that. And then, of course, she lives to see the end of the day, and I guess she'll pick up some more cybernetic limbs when it's all said and done and continue about her way. But I don't know, satisfying story. I liked it.
Mhm. No, I agree. And I like the way that it ended too, like you said, with the way that F was able to get not revenge, but justification and victory.
Indeed.
Yes.
All right. Well, then let's move on to the second of the two episodes we're talking tonight. And this one is called The Smuggler, which is by Studio Trigger. Um, the director and the studio had previously put out two episodes from Volume 1, The Twins and The Elder. I remember liking The Elder, I think, a bit better than Twins. But at any rate, the summary of this is the planet of Zenarita, has been subjugated after the king began questioning the methods of the Empire. Only the prince from the royal family avoided capture. Meanwhile, a young smuggler named Cheetah makes a deal to get her ship repairs paid off by agreeing to smuggle two passengers to a non-imperial controlled world. One of the passengers is soon revealed to be the missing prince, and her companion is a former Jedi. They successfully avoid stormtroopers and a bounty hunter before making it to what is clearly Yavin 4, and there Cheetah agrees to assist the growing rebellion. So there we go. What did you think about this one, Jay?
All right. Well, talk about leaning into familiar Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
territory. This one definitely does that. Maybe a little too much in some ways. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Maybe you can change my mind. But you've got your pilot, smuggler, this young prince, secret protector, the ever looming empire. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I actually really liked the feel of this one. I liked the energy of it. Was it predictable at times? Absolutely. Did it have some fun little beats to it that brought in some warmth feelings towards some characters? Yes, definitely. It also kind of reminded me in some ways it had the same sort of feel, especially as the animation progressed into some Tartakovsky Clone Wars style fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I liked this one, even though it was kind of predictable. It was funny because my husband watched this one with me, and he was calling the prince Prince Ali. I was like, "Well, okay, I could kinda see where you're going with that one." But I really did like this particular little story. It was endearing. I liked it.
Yeah,
What do you
this was
think?
my second favorite of volume 3,
Yeah.
so far. Yeah, this is, of course, we can't have a Visions discussion without me bringing it up, but the dual payback, I think, is still the standard by which all the rest of these are judged, and I think it's completely fair. That one just is such an achievement. I agree
Sure.
with everything you said. I think that this is, there's some Star Wars tropes in here, and I know I've complained in the past that too many Star Wars stories are coming out recently that have too many similar elements, like a child that needs to be protected and delivered somewhere type of a thing, which we've seen in The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi and the likes, and just over and over and over again. But George Lucas, I know, his, and I'm going to paraphrase a quote that I've read from him before, is like, don't be afraid of the cliches. They're cliches because they work, or they're
Mhm.
tropes. I can't remember which he used, both words or one. And what I think makes this successful is, yes, it leans into some of the tropes, it leans into some of the cliches, but then it turns them just enough on their head that
Mhm.
makes it not completely the story that we've seen before in this regard. And we'll get into some of that as we go. But with that having been said, same as with the last episode, I want to just talk about the production of here. So the animation, the style, the sound, music. What did you think of those elements for this story?
Oh, no, I really liked it. I liked the style of the animation. I liked the pacing. I thought the movement was really crisp. And, this particular style of animation, I feel like is a little bit more centered. And you
Hmm.
talk about like if, with the last one, kind of reminiscent of a Clone Wars feel as well. If Clone Wars was an anime, this would be it.
Hmm.
And so it was very consistent that way. This one didn't feel like some of the other ones did where you mentioned that it seemed like so many different people were working on different aspects of it. This was one cohesive world building, if you will, sort of feeling.
Yeah, I do remember the episode guide suggesting that they had different sets of artists combining 2D and 3D art for this. The 3D stuff, I think, was mainly the ship battles and there.
Mhm.
What I liked about the style here is that they took classic Star Wars imagery. There's a Twi'lek in one scene. The ship that Cheetah has, I think, is the same type of ship that Hondo Anaka had, or at least one of Hondo's ships. That we've seen before. We've seen it countless times in the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch and the like. And then, lightsabers, the look of Yavin 4, those things, very, very, familiar Star Wars imagery, but and stormtroopers for that matter, and the Star Destroyer, things we've seen before. But then, the ship the bounty hunter had a very much classic style. It looked like something that was similar to a Naboo N1 starfighter, or maybe General Grievous's ship. But as the episode guy pointed out, is that then it had a number of anime elements added on top of it, like, you know, swarms of missiles coming out of it, which play a
Mhm.
very key story role here. Thought that
Yes.
was really good. The bounty hunter was something new, but you could totally see that bounty hunter showing up in The Empire Strikes Back, or in the page of some of the Star Wars Marvel comics that Lucasfilm edits. It's I thought they did a really great job, but I think this, like the dual things, are some of the most successful episodes combining anime with Star Wars storytelling in
Mhm.
that regard. And so I really appreciated that. Sound just same as the others. Same sound set and stuff like that. Music was fine. It was not music heavy compared to some of the other episodes, but I
Mhm.
really liked it. So,
Yeah, I
um,
agree. This one's up there for me as well. I think, as we're talking about it and I'm sitting here trying to rank, I think this is second for me
mhm,
as well. And like you said, there's just enough that it does lean into that familiar. And, like I said, some of it may have been a little too much, but now that I think about it, I mean, it's definitely got those undercurrents of the rebellion. I mean, it even kind of had an Andor feel at certain
mhm,
points,
sure.
but yeah, I liked it a
Yeah.
lot.
So Cheetah, our main character, is this young woman smuggler. I mean, she seems like almost like a teenager, but I guess she could get away with being a young 20 something or something like that. But she really is kind of like, you gender swap Han Solo and make her a lot younger, but she has that general type of an attitude. The difference is that, where Han, when we meet him in A New Hope, is like really all about himself and making money. And it's like, I ain't in it for your rebellion. I'm in it for the money. And for her, it's like, yeah, she wants the money. She wants her ship, unlocked, but there's like no persuasion here. She is wise to what Galinu, the Jedi, wants, which is that, oh, you want you got a problem with Imperials, and she's like, oh, I understand you do too, and
Yeah.
but I'll get your ship unlocked, and you take this cargo to an non-Imperial world, and get a reward, and that's it. I mean, and once the mission's over, she's all about helping out. She doesn't have to be convinced. It's not her conscience getting the better of her. She just flat out tells Galeno, like, yeah, the Empire messed up my world too, and so
Yeah.
I definitely want to help. So again, a little bit of a trope, but just enough of a difference to make it somewhat fresh.
Yeah.
Similarly,
Yep.
Prince Arlu is our Princess Leia or Padme Amidala
There you
stand-in.
go. Mm-hmm.
You know, in A New Hope, it's Obi-Wan and Luke trying to get transport off of Tatooine so they can go rescue her. In this case, it's the royal being smuggled off the planet, a la the Phantom Menace here, down to the fact that he's under all this face paint so nobody could recognize him when he
Yes.
wasn't wearing it out in public, which I thought that was a pretty clever blend of the Leia and Amidala characters.
Yes, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say that, as far as Padme goes, she was out there being one of her handmaidens, and that's
Mhm.
kinda what he was doing out there.
Yeah. And then I really, really like Galeno, who is a Syrian, so I think Ki-Adi-Mundi, former Jedi that protects this royal family. That's what she made her goal after the Clone Wars ended and the Jedi fell. She would have died as too if the king hadn't rescued her. So she basically dedicated herself to their service. But the idea that she had that cybernetic hand and that's where she was hiding her lightsaber, I love that. I thought that
That
was
was
such a cool idea.
awesome. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I I could just gush about this, but for on and on and on. But I think I've done the majority of the talking. So what else? What else about this impressed you?
Well, you've done such a good job. But no, as far as like Cheetah goes, I agree with you. She feels layered enough, as you pointed out, she's kind of the Han Solo-ish. So
Hmm.
she's survival driven, but she's not unfeeling. You know what I mean? So
Right.
she's definitely, and she's adorable. Let's just get that out there. I really, really like this character. I like her style. I liked the way that they had her costume, if you will. It also kinda gave me some Kay Vess vibes.
Yes, it did. Yeah, you're absolutely
Mhm.
right. Hmm.
Yep, and so there was that, and again, just getting back to this feeling of, I mean, the Clone Wars. I mean, you've got this planet Zenerita. It's in a political situation. There's a blockade. There's
Hmm.
undercurrents of rebellion, and all of these things. So it just fits so well in there. And I'm with you. I really adored Gleenu. And that was one of the points where when she pulls out her lightsaber and she's battling and just standing there and just going that's the Tartakovsky
Yeah,
reference that I was talking about.
I knew
But,
exactly what you meant when you said that the first time.
yep. I kind of figured that you would. But again, it's one of those things. I just think it's very well written. The supporting characters were good enough in this short runtime that it rounded out the story without making it feel, overdone kind of
Hmm.
thing. And I want to see more of these characters. So I love the fact that this could potentially even be, maybe this was intentionally written as a pilot, who knows? I mean, I would love to see a few more of these particular storylines and see where Cheetah goes from here.
Yeah. One of the things that stood out to me was the planet of Zenerita itself.
Mhm.
It's basically that royal city is built on top of like these mountain spires that are connected by all these little like bridge streets and things, and
Mhm.
they're on a classic land speeder, trying to get out of that city, and they basically lead an ATSD away from the crowds, and you can tell how loyal the citizens were to the royal family, and that the one just like, hey, take my speeder and get away,
Right.
and when they realize that that is their prince, they're all bowing and they all want him to be safe, and there's no loyalty to the empire there as well. Uh, the other thing is like the space battle. We talked about the ships already, but that was really cool. I mean, it's the animation. The anime was fine. I'd love to have seen that in live action with the ships diving between the spires that are holding up the city, and her being chased by the bounty hunter on one hand, and then the TIE fighters coming after the other, and then she uses the missiles from the bounty hunter to take out the TIE fighters. A lot of cool action scenes. And you said it. This episode, from start to finish, including the credits, is only about 16 minutes long. But they
It's
pack
short.
so much into that 15 minutes that it's really quite a masterpiece.
Yeah, it truly is. And, and you talked about
Mhm.
sorry, the bounty hunter in this.
Mhm.
And this is it's such a cool, fresh looking type of character.
Mhm.
And I would love to see this somewhere else. It seems like this is kind of a veteran survivor that's seen many, many battles. And I love that about that. And there's still a sense of mystery around them. You know what I mean? Which I just dig that. I think that was really cool. And then one other thing that's kind of funny is all the stormtroopers and the way that they were acting in this, the town square or whatever.
Mhm.
Again, I was watching this with my husband and I go, they're a bunch of Garys. And he laughed at from, of course, Robot Chicken. So that's
Sure.
what they reminded me of. So it's just a fun story that's got a lot of, things like, oh, this reminds me of this and this reminds me of that. And I think that that's why it's easy to latch onto.
Yeah. So for me, these two episodes rank right after the dual payback. I think the Smuggler is definitely an A. I think maybe the Lost Ones is about an A minus, on par with the Bounty Hunters episode from that we talked about last time on there. But I got to tell you, after Yuko's Treasure, I was getting a little concerned about what we were going to see coming after that. But these two were quite a rebound for this anthology, for this volume of Visions here. I really like the way that these two turned out.
I agree. I agree. It's kind of the ebb and flow of visions, if you will. Yes, and I
Hmm.
I would definitely agree with your rankings and grades of each one of these as well.
Yeah. Well, we got two more to go, so we will get to those next week and wrap up the series, and then we'll probably have some more overall thoughts about Volume 3 when we're done.
Sounds
But
great.
with that, that'll bring us to the end of this episode of Podcast Stardust on our discussion of these two episodes of Visions. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, you would consider subscribing to the podcast if you haven't done so already. We also appreciate your ratings and reviews wherever you listen that support such things. And if you want to catch more Podcast Stardust beyond what your podcatcher is going to carry, then the best place to do that is to head over to retrozap.com. You can find the previous 971 episodes from 6+ years of podcasting, and other great podcasts, including Agency Old Case Files, Animaniacast, Brews and Blasters, Dork Lair, Doomcast, Enjoy Stuff, Love, Death, and Robots Plus, Superhero Suite, and Work Trails. Jay, we mentioned our social media contacts at the top of the show. You want to go ahead and share those again, and where else we can be found online?
Absolutely. So we're super easy to find. We are at Podcast Stardust on all of your socials, including Facebook and Instagram. And we also have tons of Pinterest boards out there for you to look at and get inspired for everything Star Wars. And then we have two YouTube outlets that both support subscriptions as well as reactions. So if you have any of your thoughts that you would like to add to that in terms of Star Wars Visions or anything else, you can do that on both of those. And then you can also email us at podcaststardust@gmail.com. Please send us your questions. And when we have enough, we will put them together in a listener question episode. We have fun with Ask Me Anything Star Wars between Dennis and I, but we'd love for you to ask us anything Star Wars. And then last but not least, we have a link in our show notes to our TeePublic store so you can snag all kinds of different things from apparel to home goods with 7 different show logo designs available. And if you do pick anything up, thank you in advance because each one of those purchases does help to support the show. So once again, hit up that link in our show notes.
Okay, upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we are going to get into some Clone Wars. We normally do those on Mondays, but yeah, things are a little out of order right now while we're getting through Visions, and we're just banking some episodes while we get through Thanksgiving. And then on Friday, assuming there is any, we'll be getting back into the news. And if there's not, well, then we will call an audible and give you something else. But with that having been said, thanks for listening to episode 972 of Podcast Stars, everyone. Have a great week, and until next time, may the Force be with you.